earth adore you. Kings and kingdoms bow down. Son of God, you are the...
All right, that was our Puerto Rico team. Well, we're excited to be back. These kids all had a great experience on their trips, and so we would love for all the teams to be up here sharing, but it's just not practical and not possible. So we chose a small sampling among some of the team members, and I'm just going to ask them to go around real quick. You guys can grab the mics. We're not going to keep them here. And just tell us your name and where you went. And then we're going to do this interview style this morning and just learn a little bit about these guys' trips. So...
Hi guys, my name is Danny Figueroa, and I went to Puerto Rico.
My name is Becky Parker, and I went to Puerto Rico.
I'm Tanner Allen, I went to Lynn.
Yeah.
Hey guys, I'm Hannah Campbell, I went to Lynn also. I'm Jana Van Buren, and I went to Costa Rica.
And I'm Taylor Faber, and I went to Costa Rica.
Yeah. So my name's Jesse Cruz from Touch the World. Most of you know me by now. And we're just going to interview these guys and learn a little bit more about them. I'm going to start off with Becky and just ask her to share with us a story from her trip in Puerto Rico and what she learned about a man that was right next door to the church that they were serving at.
Well, one of the life-changing moments that when we were in Puerto Rico is what I noticed was there's this very poor man that was living next to the church, and he just became a Christian 3 weeks ago. And it was really motivating to me to see that even though he just became a Christian, was living in these horrible situations, he was still so thankful and blessed that we were there serving him. And he was always having a positive attitude during it.
It's great. There's always those times when we see the people that we're ministering with right around us. And so, we talk a lot about Kairos moments. And what that means is, what are those God moments in your life where God's showing up? And this was one in Becky's trip. And I know there were lots of them that we could just endlessly share throughout the morning. But these are just small glimpses. So one question that we talked about a lot during our training and our trips is, who is God? We're all in a Christian school. Most of us are going to churches. And we grow up learning about this God, and yet on the trip, usually what happens is we start to say, is this God real? Is this God my God? Do I really know? Is everything that I've ever learned about God the same that I believe? And so as we wrestle with that question, Taylor had something that she wants to share just about God's grace that she learned.
So when we went to Costa Rica, we had the opportunity to hear a lot of different stories of different people working in the church that we were kind of involved with a few of the days. And something that really left an impact on me was one of the times that we listened to a Spanish-speaking sermon, which was interesting. But one of the times the pastor was actually after our missionary host told us that he was actually an ex-murderer, was in gangs, and it just made me think about how God really, he's a God of grace, and that he doesn't care about our past. I feel like a lot of times in our little bubble here, we get really caught up in just different things, not feeling good enough for God's grace. And here I was worshiping with ex-prostitutes, gang members, murderers, and I'm on the same level as them. So it was just really awesome to be reminded of God's grace.
Great. And Tanner, when you were in Lynn, you learned a little bit about the difference between God's plans and your plans. Tell us a little bit about that.
All right, so I think God's showing me his plans for my life rather than what I want to do for my life by, I was supposed to swear in the Army tomorrow, but a few days ago, my recruiter called me and said one of my papers was invalid, so I had to wait until I'm 18. But then the day after I was told that, we were at a track meet, and Pastor Roy from Lynn texted me, and I told him about what happened, so he said I should make an application for the Academy for Ministry, which is a program they run. And so I made the application, and he's processing it now, so I'm seeing where it's going to lead me.
That's great, thanks. Here's a slideshow from Lynn.
He reigns now and forever. church will stand, she will endure. He holds the keys of life, our Lord. Death has no sting, no final word. Our God is God saves. Our God is God saves.
So Tanner and Hannah had gone to Lynn. And Hannah, I'm just going to ask you to share with us a small story, a Kairos moment, a glimpse of what you learned about hope.
Okay, so the different days we had different things we had to do. So there was a street team that went out every day, and we would hand out flyers, and then you saw we had hot chocolate. Another night we had like a hot dog kind of thing. And one of the days I was on street team in the morning, and what we would do is the mailboxes on these people's houses are like on their house. So we would like run up the steps, put it in their mailbox, run back down, and then keep going. And this one lady's house that I was putting a flyer in, I saw something like move inside the house, and I got kind of freaked out because I was like, oh no, I hope she doesn't come out and like yell at me for like, putting something in her mailbox. And so I was like running back down the steps, and the door like flies open, and she's like, she just yells like, what did you just put in my mailbox? Did you put money? And I was like, no. And I don't even know why I said this, but later on it really had an impact on me. I just said, no, but it has greater value than that. And after that, I was thinking about it, and I was like, it does have greater value than that. Like a flyer inviting somebody to church, like an experience where it can change their life. Especially for people there. There's like there's poverty, like a physical poverty, in that a lot of them are very poor, but also a lot of them, they have never been to church. They don't really know what church is. They don't have any hope at all. And so to give somebody like a flyer saying basically, here's hope, I learned that that's like a lot better than being able to give somebody money.
So one of the other questions that we struggled with and talked a lot about is, who am I? All of us are asking questions of identity, where we belong, who we are, what gifts we have, what gifts has God given us. And so I just want to ask Danny, I know one thing stuck out to you on this trip, and God really revealed to you something about who you are. So share with us about that.
Yeah, before I went on the trip, I had previously gone to Uganda, and I had my own personal experiences from there. And I was going into it really praying for God to show me anything that he can bring out of me, and show me, I'm not just going on this trip hoping that it's anything like the trip I went on before. And so throughout the entire trip, I was being placed in a bunch of leadership roles, and I was always leading something and always, giving some form of direction to someone or doing something to help other people. And so I didn't even realize really until the end of the trip that the leadership quality that I had not even known that I had really was really being brought out throughout the entire trip. And I was getting answered prayers while I was still praying for it to come out. And I was just like, it was completely overlooked, but he definitely, God definitely brought out a huge, huge leadership quality in me that I had no idea I had, so.
That's great. And Jaina, you were in Costa Rica, and God revealed something to you just about joy. Tell us a little bit about that.
Okay, so the first day we were just driving to the Abraham Project where we were working, from our house to where we were working. And as we were driving, there was just like this incredible scenery that like I've never seen like such like beauty before, and God's beauty. And you just look at these mountains and everything that's around you, and you just think of God. And when we got to the project, we did our devotions there, and we did it in kind of like this auditorium, like open auditorium type building. And you look out and you just see more of these mountains. And as I'm doing my devotions, I just feel like God was telling me, like, you see how you see these mountains and you see me? That's how I want others to see you. They want to look at you and see God through you. And I kind of like was dealing with that through the week, and just seeing the people that we met, like Taylor said, they're just like these people that come from horrible situations, and just meeting them and seeing just the joy of the Lord in them and how the Lord has changed them. And I kind of just learned that having the joy of the Lord in you and like having the Lord evident in you is such an important thing, and an important way to kind of spread our Christianity.
Thanks. Let's see some pictures from Costa Rica.
Your love is like radiant diamonds bursting inside us. We cannot contain. Your love will surely come find us like blazing wildfire, singing your name. God of mercy, sweet love of mine, I have surrendered to your design. May this offering stretch across the skies. These hallelujah be multiplied. Your love is like radiant diamond bursting inside us. We cannot contain. Your love will surely come find us like blazing wildfire, singing your name. God of mercy, sweet love of mine, I have surrendered to your design. May this offering stretch across the sky. These hallelujah be multiplied. God of mercy, sweet love of mine, I have surrendered to your design. May this offering stretch across the sky. These hallelujah be multiplied. These hallelujah be multiplied. Bursting inside, we cannot contain. Your love will surely like blazing wildfire, singing your name.
So we got a chance to see a lot of the children from Costa Rica in this video. Taylor, why don't you share with us a story about the children that really affected you?
So one of the days on our trip, we got to take a trip downtown into one of the poorest areas in Costa Rica called La Carpio, and that was kind of towards the end of that video, some of the pictures. We took a bus ride. It was kind of a long drive, and we got into this really narrow, the streets were so narrow. We had a crazy bus driver. He was awesome though. And we got to our spot, and we kind of were like, okay, where's this church? And then like we look, and like there's just a tiny building, not what we would picture as a church, and that's where we were going to spend the day serving. And what we did that day was a feeding ministry, and that one specifically was for children, because the church there had done a lot of feeding ministries, but what happens is the parents from the community come and kind of cut the lines, get all the food for themselves, or take the food from their kids. So this was just for kids to come, so that they would definitely get a meal, because it was probably their only meal for the day or for a few days. So it was just a really impactful time for me, and I know a lot of others on the trip, because you would just see all these little kids, like literally a 5-year-old, 6-year-old carrying their baby sister or brother, who's like a few months old, into this building, into this church, and like just craving love and attention, because they weren't getting that from home. And just to see their face light up when we gave them like a small little bowl of rice, just because that's their only meal. And we got to do, Adam made some balloon animals for the kids, which they went crazy over. We did a craft with them, dancing, basically just loved on them. And that was just, I know we'll never forget just the faces of joy that we saw, and just how they just craved love and attention, and that it was just awesome that we were able to give them a glimpse of hope through that.
Thanks. So one of the biggest questions that we ask coming out of the trips is, so what? You had this great experience. What is God now calling you to? What is he speaking to you? And so Becky, I know one thing stood out to you about living on mission. Tell us about that.
Well, I think it's really important when we come back from such a high on our spiritual journey that we don't know what to do next. It's the so what question. So coming back from this mission trip, I really wanted to continue serving God and continue having that high on my spiritual journey. And it's really hard because you come from like a different country and you're serving so much, and you come back and you just look for ways and opportunities to help. And I think God's really opened my eyes to see that all around you there's poverty, and all around you there's places that need help, and little ways that you can be a light of God to others.
That's great, thank you. And Jana, something stood out to you on just a shift mentally of missions. Tell us about that.
Well, before the trip, this is kind of like a practical thing that I learned coming back. Before the trip, I was looking at a list of majors, and I just looked at it, and I was like, I don't want to do any of these things. Like, I don't know how I'm going to do any of these for the rest of my life. Like, nothing interests me. And then after going on the trip, I just kind of thought about practically how I could serve like that, just for the rest of my life, because I just love serving others. And so I kind of thought about doing something with missions here, and hopefully helping third world countries in developing their countries and their economy and stuff like that. So just that's just something practical that I think that I want to do for others. So.
Great. So why should everyone be involved in missions? We talk a lot about that missions is not just a single activity, but it's a lifestyle. So Hannah, I know something stuck out to you about, a lot of times we think that missions is Africa or going globally. What stuck out to you on this trip?
Well, when I was younger, whenever I'd see different churches, local churches or my church, going to different countries to, spread God's word and be a light for Christ, I would always ask my parents, I'd beg them, Mom, can I please go? Dad, can I please go? I want to go, I want to experience that. And when I heard that I was going to Lynn, and I heard that it was right near Boston in Massachusetts, I was like, well, why do they need me there? It's in America. That was kind of my attitude towards it. And I definitely learned right when I got there that poverty, it didn't just mean physically in need. These people, like I said before, they have a complete lack of hope. They need Christ. I guess you could say spiritually in need. Their poverty is it's a devastation of hope. None of them really knew about church. Some of them had been oh yeah, I tried that once, but I didn't really feel I didn't have any connection, that kind of thing. But when we were handing them flyers, it honestly meant the world to see the people that really accepted it. Some people just kind of walked right past, and obviously you're going to have some of those, but a lot of people generally accepted it. And the last day, we left on Sunday, so we had church in the morning, and the last day, it was like incredible to see, like talk to so many people who I'd ask them like, oh, is this your first time? They'd be like, yeah, somebody handed me a flyer this week or last week, and that was really rewarding. So anywhere you are, in your community, even here, there's a need. You know, we can be a light for Christ wherever we are, whether that means like locally or abroad.
So we need to be involved in missions to offer hope to others. That's great. And Danny, I know something stuck out to you that isn't necessarily outward focused, but more inward focused of why we should all be involved in missions.
Yeah, you know, I always thought that, you know, go on a missions trip so you can go and you can help people and you can feel good about it, and, you know, you can see, I almost thought you can bring a joy to these people, and like, you know, that's just the whole point of going on a missions trip. But what I've been realizing, at least over the past 2 years that I've gone, you find out a lot about yourself, and you find out a lot of things that you didn't know. You see a lot of weaknesses that you have that you had no idea about. But on the flip side, you also find out a lot about your strengths. And even if you think that you know even the slightest bit about what you're good at or what you're not good at, these mission trips just like they target right on, like, you know, right on point exactly what you need to know about yourself and exactly what you need to know about God, because he just gives it to you straightforwardly. And it's something that you just can't experience just sitting home and, you know, doing nothing about it. You can only find it out in such a way. And these trips definitely, they bring out the best in people.
That's great. So one last question I'm going to ask all of them, and they're all going to give a short answer to this. But God calls us to the least of these. God calls us to the poor around us. All of these students have been involved in reaching the poor, reaching the least of these in one way or another on their trips. And so I'm going to ask them all, what did you learn on this trip about the poor or the marginalized or the least of these? Tell us just something small. We're going to go right down the line.
All right. Well, I guess I could say that, you know, for these people, as impoverished as they are, they definitely have a much stronger joy, a much happier, not lifestyle, but their spiritual happiness is just beyond anything that I could have right now. And it's just something that's just insane to see because of the situation that they're in, but it's so much more pure. Like, there's so much joy. It's crazy.
Well, I think a lot of the time when we think of poverty, we don't think of that it's just on the outside. We don't think of it's really deep inside. But I think this trip's really opened my eyes that there's a lot of spiritual and emotional poverty besides physical poverty, and that you have to look down deep for the cause of poverty.
I think that it's important to realize, like Hannah said, that you don't have to go to Africa to see poverty. It's right here in the U.S., and people who are poor are just like so open to being guided and being led.
Poverty isn't, like I said, it's not just a deficiency in like physical needs. It's something that's like a lack of hope, and we all have it. We're all like, I guess, impoverished. I don't know what the word is, in something. And I think that's why we all have each other. You know, we figure out each other's weaknesses, and we use our strengths to help each other through them.
Going to Costa Rica and just seeing like extreme poverty in some places, but seeing the people and how happy they were and how joyful they were, it was just incredible to see God's light in them, and how I just think I realized like how physical poverty is sometimes easier to deal with than spiritual poverty like we have here, and people are so much harder to reach, and you don't see that joy that people who have more struggle almost can have a happier joy and not just a joy on the surface. So I think I learned that they really blessed me through the joy that they have, even though they don't have a lot.
I was just amazed by the different people that like I met who basically had nothing, especially compared to us, but just their ability to trust in the Lord, that they're not worried about where their next meal is going to come from because I know the Lord will provide it. and like I just crave that kind of faith and that kind of trust in the Lord. Even like the project that we worked with started with like a group of women and like $20, and now it's like this huge facility that's reaching so many people. So just that these people who have nothing just trust in the Lord for that He will supply everything for them.
Give these guys a hand. You can stay. Romans 10, verses 13 through 15 says this: "For everyone who calls on the name of the Lord will be saved. But how can they call on Him to save them unless they believe in Him? And how can they believe in Him if they've never heard about Him? And how can they hear about Him unless someone tells them? And how will anyone go and tell them without being sent? This is why the scriptures say, how beautiful are the feet of messengers who bring good news." We're sent to bring good news to those around us, whether right here in Bergen County, Passaic County, New Jersey, or whether to the ends of the earth. But we're called to the least of these, right? God has a heart for the poor. And so I pray that the testimonies of these students have affected you if you haven't gone. I pray that you would be involved next year. This is such a fabulous experience that you have right within the school. If maybe you don't have the opportunity for spring break, either this year or next year, we have summer trips this summer too. And so if you guys are interested in going on trips and having some of these same experiences, we have 4 trips that I want to tell you about. Seniors, you can go to Cuba. That's for seniors and above, college students and seniors. If you're a junior or senior, we're going to Uganda this summer. And for any of you, we're going to Guatemala and Mexico during the summer. So if you're interested, we're going to have some of our staff members in the back just with a little postcard that you can go to our website and get information and sign up and learn more. So definitely grab those if something has sparked your interest and God is really moving in your heart to say, yeah, you need to go. You know, God's saying, who will go for me? He's saying, who's going to have the beautiful feet that are sent and who's going to go for me?